But Indivisible is still around, bigger than ever, and they're trying again against the odds. They are calling on people to call their senators, record personal videos about voting rights, write letters to the editor in their local paper, visit congressional offices, show up at town halls and at rallies to keep the pressure on Congress. Their kind of low-key, high-impact activism and organizing has been very effective over the past few years. Whether your senators or your member of Congress are with you or against you on the issues, according to Indivisible, the key is to stay focused on the people who have to listen to you because you are their constituent. The headlines right now say that the Democratic effort to backstop voting rights with the For the People Act is about to fail. It's about to hit a brick wall, and there's no way over or under or around that on either side. But, here's President Obama and Eric Holder holding a national teletown hall on it today called All on the Line. Here's the Washington Post editorial board, who has been quite conservative on this issue, saying, actually, if the voting rights bill doesn't get Republican support and can't pass that way, Democrats should change the filibuster to pass the voting rights bill with only their votes. That is not a Washington Post editorial board kind of position, but they feel like they're up against the wall. And here's Indivisible again, pulling out all the stops, asking people to turn up the pressure in every state in the country, again, targeting your own senators, your own member of Congress. They have been effective at changing the course of Congress in the past against the odds, effective enough that tonight, on the eve of the Senate finally taking up the voting rights bill, it's worth checking in with them to get their sort of prognostication on how this is going to go. Joining us now is Ezra Levin, co-founder of Indivisible. Mr. Levin, it's nice to see you. Thanks for making time.
Great to be here, Rachel.
What do you think is going to happen tomorrow?
I think we're going to see us get off to the races tomorrow. Look, we are not headed towards a brick wall. We're headed towards a little bit of a speed bump, but this is all part of the plan. So we've got to put tomorrow in context. There were several steps to this dance of legislation coming up. First, the For the People Act had to pass the House. It did that. Then it had to go to the Senate, go through the committee process, go through markup, go through a vote. It's done all that. Now, the next step in this process is we have to debate whether there will be a debate. That's what the vote is tomorrow. The vote tomorrow is not on the For the People Act. The vote tomorrow is whether the Senate should consider the For the People Act. And here's what we are pretty darn sure is going to happen. Mitch McConnell and the entirety of the Republican caucus is going to say, nope, we don't want to debate voting rights. We do not want to debate voting rights. Despite the avalanche of voter suppression happening across the country, we don't want to debate that. And that's the filibuster. They're going to use the filibuster to kill it. Now, we do not expect a reform to the filibuster tomorrow. That is not actually what we expect. Instead, what we expect is for the bill to be tabled then. The Democratic caucus is going to go into a room by themselves, talk to each other. Then they're going to go on recess. They're going to go on congressional recess. They're going to go back home to their districts over the course of the 4th of July holiday. And then they're going to figure out what they're going to do when they come back. And look, politicians have a very scientific method for figuring out what they're going to do. They lick their finger, they stick it up into the air, and they see which way the wind is going to blow. And that's how they're going to determine what happens in July. And if we are successful in changing the way the wind blows over the course of the July 4th recess, they're going to take this up again. They're going to amend the filibuster, and they're going to pass these voting rights reforms.
The discussion about whether or not Democrats can find a way to pass this, as you say, is about whether or not they can amend the filibuster rules so they can essentially pass this with a majority vote. They can pass it with 50 Democratic votes. I feel like the coverage of that is often sort of black and white, light switch, on or off. You're either going to have the filibuster or you're not. It does seem like if this is going to happen, the more likely outcome is kind of more of a dimmer switch than an on and off light switch. They could find a way to strengthen the filibuster or reform the filibuster or alter the filibuster or have some sort of carve out for the filibuster in a way that they've done on nominations, judicial nominations and other things in the past, specifically to protect voting rights. Do you think that is the way that this will likely go if it does go forward, that they'll find a narrow path to doing this?
I think that's exactly right. They're going to debate how they can, quote unquote, strengthen the filibuster in order to have this vote. I think there are a lot of ways to skin this cat, Rachel. We've seen proposals to lower the voting threshold from 60 down to 55, down to 50. We've seen proposals to allow a carve out just for democracy bills. There are a lot of ways you can make amendments. It's really not black or white right now. But ultimately, the guide for whether or not this reform to the filibuster will work is, does the Senate majority have the ability to call an up or down vote on a piece of legislation? Or does Mitch McConnell and the Senate minority have the ability to either straight up veto, as they're going to do tomorrow, or do they have the ability to delay for months and months and months and effectively veto? So the Senate, with just the 50 Democratic votes, has the ability to change that rule. They can change it to whatever they want. And over the course of the 4th of July recess, we don't need to get into the weeds of, is it this reform, is that reform? What we're calling for is American democracy to continue functioning. We're calling for a voting rights reform that is wildly popular, that 70, 80% of Americans in some states support. So for you going out to your senator's town hall or your senator's congressional office this weekend, next weekend, the weekend after that, you don't need to get into details of procedural rules in the Senate. You just need to say, are you going to pass democracy-saving reforms or not? If not, why not? And don't talk to me about some procedural issue. Pass this bill. I'm going to be watching you. And that's important whether you're in a red state, whether you're in a purple state, or whether you're in a deep blue state. We need every single senator to be hearing from their constituents, to be feeling that fire from their constituents. That's how they change their mind. So that's why the deadline for democracy is so important. That's why these events that not just Indivisible, but pro-democracy groups all around the country are holding. And we hope everybody's going to join. This is not professionals doing all this work. This is normal school teachers, IT technicians, nurses who are standing up and saying, I guess I've got to do this. And that's exactly right. It's up to all of us to do this in this moment. This is the moment. That's why it's called the deadline for democracy.
Ezra Levin, co-founder of Indivisible. Ezra, thank you for your time tonight. Keep us surprised over these next few crucial weeks. We'll be watching tomorrow closely, but we'll speak to you soon, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.